Hello and welcome to the Hidden Hockey Podcast. Again, my name's Matt Gordon. If you haven't followed along with any of the 3 episodes prior, I encourage you to go and find us on YouTube, find us on Instagram, find us on Twitter. Would love to share the content with you. And the first 3 episodes are jam-packed with a bunch of stuff from last year's draft, this upcoming draft, as well as some international hockey prospects that you may or may not know of. And with that, we're going to go into today's episode. I have a lot to cover today. It's been 3 months since I've done an episode. I apologize for that. Life gets in the way sometimes and didn't really have the time to devote and focus on the podcast as much as I would like. But looking forward to today's episode and talking more about the elite prospects of today and tomorrow. So let's start off here with the 2023 draft right now. You're looking at my screen here with the mock draft there. It's a rough list right now, but I'm very confident in the top 3 right now. So I'm going to go into it. The 2023 draft, as we all know, has an extremely high top end. I think it's one of the better top ends I've seen in recent drafts. And I'm just going to go ahead and get started and talk about what's so special about all 3 of these guys. So starting off with number 1 with Connor Bedard. I've known about him since he was like 10 or 11 years of age. Blew up the Brick tournament, and then he eventually went on to play for West Van Academy in the CSSHL, or the Canadian Sports Hockey League, and he did phenomenal. Obviously led him to getting exceptional status. You know the rest of the story. Now he's playing in Regina, averaging nearly 2 points a game so far this year, which is unbelievable. Can't believe that he's been able to produce the way he has. And, I don't think 150 or 160 points is out of the question for him. Now, the question is he the unanimous number 1 right now? And I would argue that he is, just because of the amount of skill that this kid has showcased in the last 3 years. It's just unbelievable. He's NHL ready now. People rag on his skating. I don't necessarily agree that it's, that it's bad. I don't think that it's bad. Nobody's really saying it's bad. They're just not saying that it's of the elite quality, which I could take here or there. I think his edge work is definitely elite. I think his top end speed could be a little more, but Connor Bedard is a guy you cannot miss on. He's just an unbelievable talent. He showcases such incredible ability. He's going to step in the National Hockey League next year, and don't be surprised if he puts up 25 to 30 goals in his rookie year. I really think he's of that ability. We move on to number 2 here, and Adam Fantilli has jumped in my list. Originally, I had Matt Xhekaj 1. I still think he is the best talent in this draft by far. And I think there's a lot of scenarios with the Russian issues with his contract and getting him out of Russia that's going to eventually have him tumble down boards, because no sane GM is going to go and look at a top 3 pick for him and see him as a guy who you want to waste and put a lot of effort in to not see for 3 years. So it's interesting to see how that will develop. I don't know if there's a way for him to get out of his contract early. I don't think there will be. There is no agreement right now with the NHL and the KHL at the moment, but it should be exciting to see, him in Russia the next 3 years and see what's going on. But I'm sidetracking here. Adam Fantilli is the real subject that we're going to talk about here at 2. He's playing for the University of Michigan right now, has gone into the NCAA, and is actually outpacing Jack Eichel as a 17-year-old. He's playing unbelievable hockey for the University of Michigan. He's already the University of Michigan's best player. Tremendous ability, great skill. His shot is unbelievable. It's on par with Connor's, and he's a great prospect to watch. I really like what he brings to the table, and I think the sky's the limit for a guy like him. He's going to be able to come in and be a power winger or a power center if you need him to be. And I think the skill is just so evident. He's really a talented player and somebody that you're going to want to watch going forward here. He hasn't gotten nearly enough attention. And to me, he's not a Connor Bedard, but he's pretty dang close. Now, number 3, going to Matt Xhekaj. Matt, I've talked about him glowingly on this podcast in pretty much every episode. The only issue with Matt Vey is the contract issue. It's this, and obviously the war in Russia and Ukraine has had a big impact on that, as well as wondering when you're going to be able to get a kid over like him to come here. I look at him, and to me, he's the best prospect we've seen since Alex Ovechkin or Evgeny Malkin from Russia. He's going to be a guy who, once he comes over to the National Hockey League, I think he's going to have like a Kirill Kaprizov type impact, if not more so. Great player, unbelievable hockey sense. He's the smartest 16-year-old kid I've ever seen play the game of hockey, and he's only proving that, by playing in the KHL and producing, as well as playing in the junior leagues and making them look silly when he's ever down there. Currently, right now, he's playing in the VHL, which isn't equal equivalency to the AHL in North America, but it's their second league, and he's going at a goal per game pace, and he's playing unbelievable. In terms of where he should be as a 17-year-old kid. He's got tremendous ability. Then when you go on to number 4, Braden Yeager right now is my 4. I think he's a guy who he's proven time and again that he's a really hard-nosed player, great skill, showcases a lot of really pro-ready habits. I've watched him in a few viewings, and I really like the player that's out there. I think he's below the 3 that are there right now, but I think there's potential for him to, stay in this 4-5 range. I think he's going to be right up, and he's definitely going to be a top 10 pick, no question. But I think there's a lot of untapped skill there that's still needing to be brought out, through his experience in the Western Hockey League and beyond. And can't wait to see his growth. And the Western Hockey League this year has got an incredible crop for the 23 draft. He's going to be probably the top of many really good prospects that are going to finish, anywhere from the top 30 to the top 60. I think there's probably 10 or 12 guys who, to me, are going to be really high-end players and going to continue to be high-end players in the Western Hockey League. So number 5 on the top-ranked OHL guy for this year is Callum Ritchie. Really like his game. He's an absolute force out there. He's coming to the Ontario Hockey League, what he did last year, and just didn't look out of place. He looked really, really skilled. And, he's shown some uncharacteristic leadership skills for somebody that young. He's obviously still 17, but he's, he leads by example, and he goes out there and he showcases his play and showcases his talent. I think there's a ton of skill there. It's really impressive to watch him play, and I look forward to seeing him potentially at the U18s this year, and I obviously when he's playing in the OHL as well. Riley Heights, another Western Hockey League kid. I have him at 6. He's a little high right now. I don't know if he's going to stay there. He might drop down to maybe the mid-teens, depending on the depth of this class and how certain guys are going to rise and fall. But right now I have him at 6. I think he's a guy who's going to be really sought after by a lot of NHL teams. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he works, and he's similar to Yeager in terms of they grew up playing with each other. They grew up playing against each other. And both of them carry an incredible amount of skill and hard work, and they also can skate really well. So they're both similar players. Braden's obviously a bigger version of Riley, but I think Riley's got a lot of skill and potential, and those that aren't afraid of size are going to take him, and they're going to take him and be very happy, regardless of where they pick him. Number 7 for me, the top-ranked American guy on my list is William Smith. Yes, his name is Will Smith, but he's about as cool as Will Smith too before the slap. And he's just unbelievable in terms of his skill and his development that he's had over the last 12 to 18 months. As soon as he came to the development program, he immediately became the top 05 for the U17 group last year. Now he's coming to the U18 year and is averaging he's at 2 points a game, and has really showcased a lot of why he should be ranked this highly. And I think he's a guy who's there's a small chance he could go into the top 5. I think he's more around the 7 to 10 range. I'd probably have him higher than most do. But I really believe in his skill. I've watched him countless times, and I think he's a guy who's going to be a really good player. And to me, I think he's far and away the best 05 in the U.S. class, no question. Number 8, this is a guy who came onto my radar in the Galore Gretzky tournament. To me, I think he is the best Finn that's going to be eligible this year, and that's Tuomas Juronen. I believe he plays for HIFK, playing pro hockey already, has done a lot of really good stuff. But in the Galore Gretzky tournament, I thought he was tremendous. One of their best forwards. I thought his work rate was really impressive. His overall skill was unbelievable. And I like what he had there. Most people probably have him as a late first round guy right now. I don't know that he's going to fall top 10. I like him right now in the top 10. It just depends on how his play shakes out. He's got to have a hell of a year to stay in the top 10, in my opinion. But right now where I have him, I'm really, really high on his game and his ability. I think there's a lot to like there. I think there's a lot of building potential. There's a lot of skill that's there, and I can't wait to see what he's going to do going forward. I think he's part of a Finnish class to me that is very underrated. I really like the look of that Helenka team for Finland. That 05 group is super solid, and obviously everybody knows about Aaron Kiviharju, who I'm going to talk about later in the podcast, but really, really impressed by him and his skill. Number 9 is going to be Andrew Kristall, another Western Hockey League kid. That's the third kid I got ranked in here in the top 10. He's a kid to me, honestly. He's got a similar game to Elias Pettersson in terms of his overall skill set. He's known for his pass first playmaking ability. He's known as a pretty good skater. Relies a lot on some atypical, playmaking abilities and things. He sees the ice incredibly well, and he sees the ice differently than most do. And a lot of skill there. I really like his ability. I think he's going to, he's still a little raw even right now. That's why I have him pretty aggressively ranked. I think most people would have him probably late first right now, but I really like the skill he's got, and I really like the potential that he's going to showcase. To me, he's got top 10 upside, but it just depends on how his season works out. If he continues to play the way he has, I don't see why he can't sneak up into the top 10 here. Number 10 is a kid who right now isn't playing in Major Junior. He's playing in the Tier 2 Junior A. Well, was playing in the Tier 2 Junior A circuit. Now is playing in the NCAA for UConn. Is Matthew Wood. This kid's a dark horse. I think there's a lot of people that don't really know who this kid is right now. Obviously, there's some that do because of his, the results he's had in the BCHL and what he did last year. But he's come into the NCAA and he's done a pretty dang good job. I think he's another guy. Him and Fantilli have both been really good NCAA players for being freshmen. Obviously, nobody's produced to the level of Adam Fantilli, but Matthew Wood's pretty close, and he's done a lot. He could be a program changer for the people, for the team over at UConn. They haven't really had a player of his caliber ever there, and he's a guy who could shape a program, and he can go and really be impactful. I think there's a lot to like there. I think he may not play next year. In terms of being in the NHL, he's definitely going to be an NCAA guy, I think, for another year after this, but really like the skill, really like the overall, size, skill, smarts package that he brings to the table. And he's going to be a fun one to watch this year. I got some other guys down here, later on in the draft. I'm just going to cover the top 10 today. But there's obviously other guys here. It's a strong Canadian class, in my opinion. I think there's a lot of guys that you're going to really like coming out of the major junior leagues, as well as the AJHL and the BCHL, and a lot of really good talented players. I don't have any defensemen ranked in my top 32. I don't know about guys like Cam Allen. I think Cam Allen's really struggled this year. He's a defenseman for the Guelph Storm. To me, he needs to show a little more. He could have a strong back half of the year and do really well, but I'm not really overly impressed by him right now. Another guy who I considered putting in my top 32 is a Russian kid, and Mikhail Gulyayev. He's a defenseman that right now he's getting some KHL time, but he's also playing in the MHL as well. To me, I think he is the top-ranked defenseman in my opinion. I'm not as high on Axel Sandin Pelika or the other likes, or Theo Lindstein. To me, I don't see as a first rounder either. I think to me, the guy who I see the most potential out of is Gulyayev. And I think there's more to give there. And I don't see a strong defensive class out of this year. I think 2024, which I'm going to get into later, is got a much stronger defensive class. And we'll see how it goes. But it's a strong class for Canada. Other guys who I considered ranking, but I didn't really ultimately put them into my top 32. And I'm not going to showcase the rest of the top 32. It's still kind of a work in progress. But Dalibor Dvorsky, he's seen right now as the top Slovak in the draft. I just need to see more consistency from him. I've watched a couple showings of him, one in Sweden and then a couple at the World Juniors. And, even though he was the youngest guy in every situation that he was in, I did expect a little more. There were times where he was invisible on shifts and didn't really impact in the way that I thought he would. Great player, though. I think there's a lot of skill there. Certainly a guy who a lot of people have slotted in their top 10s. But it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out this year. He's playing in the Allsvenskan this year, which is the second tier Swedish league. I don't know if he's going to get SHL time this year, but We'll see how it goes for him in this season. Another guy who's really charged up the boards, some even have him as aggressive as 4-3, is Leo Carlsson, plays for Örebro in the Swedish Hockey League. Again, it's a consistency thing for me too. I've seen mixed viewings of him, seen some really great viewings of him, and I've also seen some poor showings as well. Would like to see him kind of really continue what he's doing in the Swedish Hockey League, because right now he's outproducing pretty much everybody outside of the Sedins in terms of historical production. He's an interesting guy to follow. I think it's a Swedish class this year that's not nearly as strong as it normally is. And he would probably be the guy leading the charge for the Swedes. And, another guy who I have who's in my top 32, he's actually the only Swede I have in my top 32, is Noah Dauer Nielsen, who his brother Liam was drafted by the Detroit Red Wings in 2021, I believe. And it should be interesting to watch those two guys develop and get into the rest of the year. I think Noah's had a stronger start to the season, even more so than Leo. But I think there's more consistency there as well. To me, I see Noah Dauer Nielsen is the top-ranked Swede, in my opinion, right now. Leo Carlsson's another guy. And then finally, another guy from Sweden who, again, is another guy who I struggle with his consistency, is Otto Stenberg, who plays for Frölunda. And I need to see more from Otto. I think he's a really great overall package in terms of his, he's 6'3", and I want to say he's about 200 pounds. Skates really well, and he's very highly skilled, but I don't see it all the time when I watch him play. I see him get lapses where he's really good, and then you don't see him for a period and a half. And, consistency is obviously something that young prospects always struggle with, but it's something that I particularly notice, especially in Leo Carlsson and in Otto Stenberg. Both workable things, both things that can be developed really well, but, it takes time, and there's things that, we're going to have to be able to really understand about those two prospects to really get them in the way that most people see them as. So I'm going to go now into 2024. And this is kind of, again, a rough cut, but I feel really confident, particularly in the top 6 or 7 that are ranked here. So I'm going to start off here. Number 1 for me, and has been across the board, and I think he will be probably across the board, is Aaron Kiviharju out of Finland. Watch this kid again. He's kind of like Connor Bedard. I think he's, Connor Bedard and Matvei Michkov, both of them are seen as generational talents. And I would argue that, Fantilli is working his way towards that. Aaron and Cole and Macklin, I think all 3 of those guys are coming into their own as well. 2024 is shaping up to be a really good draft as well. I don't know if it's the same depth level, but it's definitely a draft to watch. Aaron is a defenseman. I think, to me, he's the most impressive defenseman I've seen since Rasmus Dahlin. Really like what he brings to the table. Really like his overall skill package and potential. And one of the best skating defensemen I've ever seen. I think there's a ton of really great skill and a lot of great stuff that you can see out of this kid and what he brings to the table. I like what he does and how he plays the game. He almost plays more of an Erik Karlsson kind of role, or, that type of rover defenseman like a Cale Makar. He's in that new age defenseman build, and he's a little smaller, and he's got some injury history, but looking at his overall skill set and his overall package as a player, I think there's a lot to like there. So for number 2, Cole Yzerman. Yes, it's pronounced exactly like you would think it would be. He's playing right now for the under 17 team, as well as gotten a couple games in the U18 team at the development program as well. To me, he's the next great American hockey player. Really, actually, I debated him at one point, but I just think Aaron's got such generational type skill set. And I think Cole Yzerman, to me, he's got more of a there's a lot more to like out of Aaron compared to Cole, but it's a slim margin for sure. Cole, to me, is a guy that you're going to put out there and you're guaranteed that you're going to get 30 to 40 goals out of him in the National Hockey League level, especially if he continues down the development path he has. He started early in his youth career just dominating, based on skill. Sorry about that. based on skill and based on, his unbelievable shot. But there's a lot to really like from Cole Eiserman in terms of what he brings, from a pro level skill set. To me, he's him and James Higgins, who James Higgins is a 2025 guy I'm going to talk about in a little bit as well. Love his overall game. I think the skating is something that he's really improved on, especially in the last 6 months, really bringing it together. And he started the season really well. And I've noticed he's noticeably quicker too, a lot better with his straight line speed. Not that he wasn't great already, but he's really put himself into an elite category with that. And it's fun to watch him grow and develop. And I think him and another guy who I have lower, you can see here at Aiden Park, both guys I'm really impressed with, and I'm really excited to see how they do. And then number 3 is Macklin Celebrini. Right now he's playing for the Chicago Steel in the USHL. Played for Shattuck St. Mary last year on the prep team. And the kid hasn't stopped. He's just been so good. A kid who I think he really rose up my board. I had him closer to later rounds. And I like what he brings. I like the skill that he brings, and his overall potential is really impressive. If you hadn't seen this past week, he had a between the legs goal at the World Hockey Under-17 Championships. And he brought a lot of skill, brought a lot of potential out there, and it's fun to watch. I really like his overall skill set and the way he plays the game. A lot to like there. And then for me, the guys lower on the boards here, I'm going to get a little bit into them. I'm not going to talk about them as much, but Ivan Demidov right now is a really, really talented Russian player that's doing very well for his age in the MHL. He's a guy who right now he is my 4 for sure. I like what he brings. I think those 4 have really separated themselves from the rest of the pack in terms of this draft. And we'll see how the rest go on here. But Tanner Howe is another kid. He plays with Connor Bedard in Regina. When he hasn't played with Connor, his skills haven't really shown as well as they should. I don't see him as a Danny Roussan situation where, for those who don't know, Danny Roussan played with Sidney Crosby and Rimouski, put up a ton of points, and then when he got to the pro level, he didn't have anything. I don't see that out of Tanner. I think he's a really good player on his own right, and the production's probably a little higher than it would normally be if he was playing with somebody else, but lots to like there in terms of his overall talent. Michael Haig, another guy who would have played with Macklin Celebrini in the Chicago Steel program. He's currently hurt right now. But his overall skill set's pretty impressive. More of a cerebral guy. He plays very smart, really good around the net. There's still more for me to learn from his game. I've watched clips and stuff. I haven't actually seen him in a live viewing just yet. But I'm really looking forward to that once he gets healthy this year. And should be an interesting draft as well. Again, this is the last, 2023 is a strong Canadian draft, and 2024 might even be stronger. Love what they have in terms of the depth here. Canada did have a couple down years, but I really think there's a lot to like out of this crop in 2023 and 2024 from Canada. They're going to put a lot of really good skill kids together, and it should be exciting to watch and see how these kids grow. I think there's a ton of potential out of these kids, and Finland as well has got a really strong draft. They're gonna do really well in this class. Sweden gets better. The Czechs for the 2023 draft, they have a better draft in my opinion. 2024 is a little weaker, but they're going to bump that up in 2025 with a few other prospects as well. And it should be interesting to watch that growth and the development out of that class. So now I'm going to move on to 2025 and go into a little bit more of, some other guys who I really like their skill and their potential. So we're going to go down here, 2025. Obviously, everybody knows about Michael Misa right now. Recently got exceptional status into the OHL, has gone on and played for the Saginaw Spirit and is over a point per game, as a 15-year-old. He's putting up production similar to John Tavares, not nearly at the McDavid level, but he's a guy who I think fits in that John Tavares type skill level. I really like what he brings to the table. Really good straight line skater. Again, really high end elite player. To me, what's interesting is this 07 Ontario class. I think, the kids that were in that crop, I could argue that probably 3 or 4 of those kids deserved exceptional status. Other kids who, a couple of them I'm going to get into later, is Ryan Rubrick, who's a late 07, and William Moore was another kid who I think, you could consider for exceptional status. I was more so on Rubrick than I was Moore, but a lot of really talented players. There's a ton of other kids too that are, off the radar a little bit, but there's a really strong 07 class in the Ontario region. And then we go on to the late 06, James Hagen's kid's done an unbelievable job. I liken this kid to a Patrick Kane. Really skilled, elusive, very deceptive in how he controls pucks and how he passes, finds lanes that most players don't. And he should be a kid to really watch. Him and Eisenman are guys who their level they bring each other up quite a bit. I'm looking forward to some real live viewings of them, considering they're, I'm based in Detroit and they're not too far from me in Plymouth. And I'm really excited to kind of get a viewing of those two. They're both really great players. Both of them are going to get some U18 time. Cole already has, but I think James is going to get some looks too, especially after the way they've been playing in the World Hockey Championships as of late. Both of them are 1-2 in scoring right now as I'm recording this, which is obviously it's November 6th today. Should be fun to watch. Other kids here that I like, another kid who's American who right now he can't play for the development program. He's a kid who I think could have honestly probably played on this U17 team this year if they had the exceptional status rule for that. And that's LJ Mooney. I love this kid's game. I watched a game of his last year and was absolutely blown away. He was younger than everybody on the rink and was by far the best player. Like, it wasn't even close. He's a cousin of Logan Cooley and definitely more talented than Logan. And I like Logan a lot, but I mean, LJ is a different breed. He's going to be a kid who I think he's going to come in and immediately play in the National Hockey League. He's not going to need a year like Logan did this year, playing for the University of Minnesota. I think LJ's, from the development program to the NHL kind of guy. I ranked him a little lower just because, he hasn't played Major Junior yet. He obviously can't play Major Junior yet, but I like his overall game and skill set as well from an American perspective. To me, this is the strongest class out of the three for the U.S., the 07 group. The 06s are pretty good, but the 07 group I think is going to be really talented. Should be a hell of a development program year for those two. And then other two guys I want to talk about are Jordan Gavin, who those who may have recognized him from Hey Barber videos. He trained with Pavel Barber, obviously hockey influencer on Instagram. Trained with him from the ages I think it was like 8 to 13, 14. And he's come in and he's gone in the Western Hockey League and played really well. Unbelievable player, really skilled. And he put up a ton of points in the Canadian Sports School Hockey League. I think he had for Delta Hockey Academy, I think he had 120 points in 30 games. I'm going off my head. It's something like that. Last year, just an absolute specimen of a player. And he's gone in and he had some time in Tri-City last year and he came in this year as a full-time player and he hasn't slowed down. He's going to be a really impressive player to watch and look forward to seeing him. Cream of the crop out of the West there. Him and Cole Reshny and Aaron Obabaifo. And, there's a lot of kids out of that group too. And then finally, Malcolm Spence, who was Michael Meese's teammate for the Mississauga Sens. He's a kid he's a late born 06, but an incredible talent, really, really skilled player. He's played really well in the OHL for Erie. He's going to be a guy that you're going to lean on quite a bit and really good straight line skater. Big kid too. He really is demonstrative with his size too, especially for being a 16-year-old kid in the OHL. He really honestly doesn't look that out of place. And it should be fun to watch a guy like him play. 2025. Another guy I don't have ranked here, but it seems like it's the year of the Atom for the Czech the Czech program. Adam Benach. I think it's Benak or Benach. I have yet to get a pronunciation on that. Nobody's really talked about him yet, but he's a kid right now who's blowing up the Czech under-17 league. You can learn more about him on our Elite Prospects. Trust me, he's going to be a really good talent. There's some clips out there of him too. Every highlight clip I've seen of him so far, though, he looks far and away by far the best kid from the Czech region. Him and another kid who actually is in the 24 draft. I need to see more from him, though, is Arber Xhekaj. He's playing right now in Finland for, I want to say, the Pelicans, the Lottie Pelicans. So it should be a really fun guy to watch. Really talented and very skilled player. 2025 right now, honestly, too. I've noticed that you noticed I haven't talked a lot about goalies or defensemen. Defensemen, I think for the 2024 draft, it's a really strong class for them. Other kids that are 2024 guys that I didn't talk about earlier were like Drake Murray. Drake Murray is a kid who's going to be a really good defenseman out of the U.S. They got other kids who are showing up in the 06 realm. One kid who is a prospect that nobody really talks about yet. Chris Peters has talked about him a little bit on his podcast. Is Artem Levshinov. He's from Belarus. He actually moved from Belarus during last year to go play in the USHL, and now he's playing for the Green Bay Gamblers and is immediately a top pairing defenseman for them as a 16-year-old in the USHL, which those who are in the know how difficult that is. And he's incredibly impressive. That's a kid who you're going to watch too. A kid who's he's from a non-traditional hockey country, but he's going to play really well. I think he's going to be a guy who translates really well in the National Hockey League. It should be fun to watch. And then as far as 2025, to me, this is the year of the goalie. A couple kids, one guy right now who his start hasn't been the greatest for the World Hockey Championship. He's only played one game, but he didn't have that great of a game. Was Gabriel Diego, I think. He plays for the Victoriaville Tigers in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. And really high-end kid. I think he's a really, really talented goalie. Huge kid too. I think I want to say he's 6'2" or 6'3". It's just turned 16. So he's going to be a really fun player to watch. I really like his overall skill set. And then another kid right now who in Sweden has recently gotten some fame for his play in TV Pucken is Luve Harenstam. And he's a goalie that plays for Luleå right now. And for those that are unfamiliar with Luleå, they've developed guys like Jesper Wallstedt, who's gone on to obviously get drafted by Minnesota and is now playing in the Iowa Wild. He's apparently right up there with guys like Jesper Wallstedt and their overall talent level. I have him pretty aggressively ranked right now. Obviously, nobody really has a ranking for 2025 yet, but unless you're a dork like me. But it should be fun to watch these guys and watch their talent levels really, shoot up the boards. I think he's going to be a guy who I can see as a first-round goalie. Same with Daigle. I think both guys are going to be, creeping into the first, if not early second round in their draft year. If they continue the development path they're on. And another goalie, too, who Detroit Red Wings fans, those that were really into prospects, back in the day would know him as Stefan Leave. His son's Erman Leave. He's a really talented player. Stefan tragically passed in the Lokomotiv plane crash when he was playing for Lokomotiv Yaroslavl in the KHL. And who's a guy who unfortunately never really got to the NHL just because of the depth of the Detroit Red Wings at the time. Easily could have played in some other teams around the league, but it just didn't work out the way they would have liked. And he went on to have a really good career before his unfortunate passing, but a really great player, and I love his overall skill set. I think there's a lot to like there in terms of his growth and development. Should be fun to watch those guys, playing going forward. And then I'm going to get a little bit into 2026. It's obviously way too early to talk too seriously, but there's a few kids I want to bring up right now. I'm going to talk about them briefly. One kid in particular is Gavin McKenna. His NHL debut, or his WHL debut was a 4-assist night. Kid just turned 15. Really, really, this is an unbelievable player. I think he's a kid who I liken him to a guy who, to me, honestly, he could have gotten exceptional status. I think he was of that caliber and that ability. But I don't think they were willing to grant it to a kid who, was, needed to show a little bit more. He wasn't always, playing at the highest elite levels until recently. And now he's gone on to really dominate the elite levels too. Really talented player. I like him a lot. And a kid from the Yukon, which is not Dylan Cousins has been developed out of there. There's a few other guys that have been developed out of there, but not necessarily your biggest development path. So obviously he had to move down out of the Northwest Territories to kind of move into some better development situations for him. He plays in the Canadians. He plays in the Canadian Sports School Hockey League, and is a really impressive player. I like his skill set a lot. I mentioned him earlier. Ryan Rubrick he's got a brother Dylan who plays for Niagara in the OHL. This kid will be an OHL player. He will probably be the number 1 overall kid in the OHL draft this year. Really like him a lot. I think I see him like a Ryan Getzlaf type player, except with more skill. And not that Ryan Getzlaf lacked any skill, but this kid's really got some incredible hands, some great ability, and I like his overall play. He should be really fun to watch. He's blown up the Alliance Minor Midget circuit right now, playing for the London Junior Knights. Him and a couple of his teammates are going to be really high-end players, and should be fun to watch these guys play. I think there's a ton of skill and potential out of these guys, and it should be really fun to watch them going forward. Another guy to watch, Slovakian kid. The Slovaks are really growing their hockey programs. They got a lot of kids right now, to me, that I'm not going to talk about them now because it's way too early, but it looks like they're 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids are really growing at rates that are even surpassing the U.S. and Canada in some certain aspects in terms of comparables. Should be really fun to watch their growth in the coming years. I think there's a lot of skill here. And one guy in particular I really like is Tobias Tomic. Kid right now the U18 level was pretty easy for him last year as a 13-year-old, which is really crazy to think about. He was playing in the Slovakian under-18 league, which obviously is not known for, really producing any super high-end athletes. But when you're that young and doing that well in a league that isn't necessarily a walkover league for a 13-year-old kid, that's really impressive. And, he might get some U20 time this year. I don't know if he'll get pro time is a little much for a kid of his age, but and I don't think he's of that level yet, but he's a kid who you're going to definitely want to watch. Another guy like that is Tomas Pobazal. Sorry, Pobazal. I'm doing this off memory. He's another kid who he's actually gotten some pro time. He's playing, I think he's in the 2025 class. He's a really skilled player as well. It's a guy to really watch out for. The Slovaks are coming, so watch out. We're already seeing it with Slevkovsky and Nemec and, the various others that have gone on to be drafted really high in the National Hockey League. It's storms are coming, and it's Slovakian, that's for sure. A couple more guys to talk about. One guy is Rasmus Rene. I don't see him. This guy is like far and above the Finnish kids in his class, but he's producing at a level that's really impressive, similar to an Aaron Kiviharhu. He's not of that level yet. I think he could go. It just depends on, how you watch this kid, how you watch him develop. He's going to be a really talented player, and I really like what he's got to say and what he's got to do as a hockey player. Coming out of Finland, he's playing at the U16 program, the U16 league already. He's doing very, very well for somebody who right now is just about to turn 14. So it should be fun to watch that kid play. And then one other kid who right now is getting a lot of hype is Noah Kosick, who's playing in the Canadian Sports School Hockey League. Obviously, I've mentioned it 4 or 5 times now on the program, but there's a ton of really, really, really high-end kids out of this league. It should be interesting to watch these kids grow and develop. They're constantly playing against the best of each other, and I think it'll be an interesting case study in about 5 to 10 years just to see how many elite kids are going to go through this development path. I think there's a ton of unbelievable development opportunities for these kids, and that's why you're seeing them coming in droves. And it should be fun to watch those kids grow and develop. I think there's a ton of skill, a ton of development path opportunities for them, and should be fun to watch. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. I'm going to go back to my stream, and 40 minutes in. And it was a ton of stuff that I can get into. I don't know if I'm going to get into everything I want to today. I'm going to try and cut this off at about an hour. But other guys to watch out for. I'm not going to get into younger years. It's too early, obviously, to track kids like that. I have watch lists for kids, but, obviously it just depends on, when they're able to really develop and get to the path where we can start talking about them. But it should be interesting to watch these kids grow forward. And I really like the growth in a lot of these classes as well. Another guy who, I want to talk about here because he's really coming to the NHL and really made a name for himself is Arber Xhekaj. He's playing right now for the Montreal Canadiens, for those who don't know, and really has blown the doors out of a lot of people. He's come in, he's made an immediate physical impact. Got an unbelievable story, obviously, during the pandemic. He's debating whether or not the OHL career is the career for him, and starts working at Costco, just doing normal stuff, and comes out of COVID, plays and gets his opportunity in Kitchener, and really makes a big deal and plays really well, and then gets traded over to the Hamilton Bulldogs, where he really blows up and plays very well in the Memorial Cup and makes a name for himself, finds an opportunity to get himself into a nice path and a nice opportunity for him. And it should be really awesome to see what he can do, how he can do, and see where he's going forward. I think there's a ton of skill, a ton of development opportunity for him, and I really look forward to seeing what he brings to the table. I think there's a lot of really good potential out of him, and he's going to change the way I think we view prospects. I really believe that, and it should be fun to watch these kids. Obviously a guy like Arber Xhekaj, there's going to be a lot of prospects that are going to model their game after him, especially if they're not really elite talents. Because everybody wants to make an impact, right? Everybody wants to be able to go out there and do what they need to do to be successful. And it should be fun to watch a kid like that. I think there's a ton of skill, a ton of development opportunity for him. And he's somebody you got to watch going forward, going into this draft. I mean, not going into the draft, but going into his National Hockey League career. I think there's a ton of really fun stuff to watch out of him. And it should be interesting to see what he does going forward in the National Hockey League. And it'll be a fun case study to go through over the next few years. As far as other things that I'm going to cover today, I'm going to actually leave it for the next episode. I'm going to get more next episode into guys that are underrated prospects coming into this year's draft. I'm going to get more into the international hockey circuit, probably after the World Under-17 tournament, and talk more about that, talk more about some high-end talents, like one country in particular, the Ukrainian. The Ukrainians are coming as well because of their lack of opportunity in their home country. A lot of these Ukrainian kids are going into different development paths, like in Sweden and Norway and in Russia and various other places, and even in the U.S. And a lot of them are doing really well. And, despite an awful situation, I think this might be a really interesting time for Ukrainian hockey development. They've got financial backing. They've got a lot of really, really passionate people that work in Ukrainian hockey. And I think there's a ton of real potential for these kids coming out of Ukraine. I think the younger generations are going to benefit from an otherwise really unfortunate circumstance. And, we'll see how it goes. But I like what's happening right now for these Ukrainian kids. And it's great to see because, you don't want their opportunities to be ruined by, somebody as selfish as Vladimir Putin going and trying to destroy their country. So it should be interesting to see where hockey goes for these niche countries. Obviously, Russian hockey development without international hockey is going to be something to watch going forward. And there's a ton of really good stuff that's out there right now for, niche countries that are really developing a lot of great talents. I'm going to cover that more in the next episode. But until then, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter. And thanks again for listening. And hope you have a good one and hope you enjoyed the podcast. Thank you.